goodwill must respect the territorial integrity of Israel. We said that in 1967. I would not be doing my job if I did not remind us of the surge in anti-Semitism and other forms of hate that our world is facing right now. But what I want to share with you this evening is that my time with ADL has knocked me into contemplating, thinking about the roots of hate and why it is and how it is that hate can be so prevalent at a time when we are also reaching across differences in so many wonderful ways. And not like I have a big solution for you, but I will caution you that when you are being sold a simple story, be on guard, because hate is very often at play. What do I mean by that? I was just talking with colleagues at the table about the fact that if one wants to wrestle with the issues of the modern state of Israel in a deep way, in a way that engages with the thorny, difficult challenges that are part of the life of the state of Israel, one could do a lot worse on college campuses than to go to the Hillel, than to go to the Jewish community. It's there you will find people who know what they're talking about and who are wrestling as with a sense of obligation as a Jewish imperative with the issues of Israel, which is very different than chanting simplistic slogans. I've been asked since I came to ADL from 12 years as working as a Jewish chaplain on the Harvard campus, and then campus, of course, erupted in the way that it did following October 7th, whether I was surprised. And my response all throughout has been to say is it possible to be shocked and not surprised at the same time? By which I mean, when the stories become so simplistic, when whole countries get reduced to slogans, and when those slogans are bought into by students who ought to be the most thoughtful, the most reflective, the most embracing of nuance among the country, our communities in the country, then we're in serious trouble. And I say again, hate is a powerful intoxicant because it sells a very simple story that one can tell, pointing a finger at somebody else, which gives one great clarity about oneself. Oh, it's them, it's not me. So one can sit in what used to be the Massachusetts Bay Colony and disown one's misgivings about that by decrying settler colonialism somewhere else. And when Jewish community and Israel become a convenient address for the displacing of one's own misgivings about one's own privilege, as happens among many college students, and in that sense, I think anti-Semitism is afoot. And it's the same with the oppression and the generalization about any other community of diversity. What do we do about this? The best thing we can do is what we're doing this evening, which is to get to know one another, to spend time with one another, to not make presumptions about one another because of the way we look or the traditions we attach ourselves to, but to walk up to each other and get to know each other's stories, because the world is a remarkable pointillist painting. And when you walk up to its individual brushstrokes, you find that hate becomes so much more difficult because human beings ultimately are endearing, I think, in our struggle to find our way through this world, to make our stories of meaning and community together with one another. It's only when we step way back from the pointillist painting so that it resolves itself into some cartoon, right, that we can make hateful generalizations about one another. There are very few of you in this room that I know personally yet. I'd like to change that over the course of the evening, at least in some instances, I hope. But I remind myself that I can't pick and choose any one of you and say, well, I'd like to meet a such and such, and walk up to whatever that seems to be as though I know what I'm going to find. And it's the same, by the way, with any community, and it's the same with the state of Israel. One of my very favorite things, and I speak Harvard campus was when our own Israeli students would take 100 of their peers of all backgrounds and faiths to Israel over spring break. Now, I'll bring this back to King in just a moment. And when they returned from this amazing whirlwind trip to Israel and to the Palestinian territories as well, to visit with the Palestinian Authority and to do all the things that one can do in exploring Israel, I had two favorite questions that I used to ask. Well, really one favorite question that had two types of answers. My question was, so what surprised you? So what surprised you? And I would always get a variation of two different answers. The one answer was, we had no idea how diverse Israel was. We had no idea what a multi-ethnic, what a kaleidoscope of visible diversity, but then also ideological diversity. So many different ideas of what the country should be, which, on the one level, is not surprising at all. If you look at America, any country when you get up close to it is far more than a headline. But at a distance, again, the danger is that the picture, which is actually a pointillist picture of many, many, many brushstrokes, resolves itself into one image and eventually at a great distance into a cartoon. And it's easy to hate a cartoon, right? I mean, cartoons truck in very simple motions. And the other kind of answer that I would get to the question of what surprised you is we didn't know that Israel struggles with its own issues to such a great degree. Now, that's become a little more apparent in the months before October 7th because of the protests out on Israeli streets about different views about the judicial system there, and so there's a remarkable instance of democracy on display, a democratic society on display. But again, walk up to our own country and one finds divisions and difficulties and different ideas of how we should go about building this country. So I say again, in my time at ADL, I've had, regrettably in a certain way, but somebody needs to do this, and I'm glad ADL exists to do it, a lot of opportunity to look at a lot of instances of hate. And what they all seem to have in common is that they are trying to tell a very simple story about somebody, which is usually a way of displacing one's own discomforts onto someone else and making them the address for that. If only we can solve that guy over there. And very often that's a way of avoiding what needs to be solved right in here. So I come back to King, who when he went as a pilgrim to Jerusalem, said, now I must say that when you say landing in Jerusalem, King said, you must qualify what you're saying and tell what part of Jerusalem. And King was there in 67. This was a divided city. That is because that ancient holy city has been divided and split up and partitioned, and before you can enter one side of the city, it must be clear you will not enter the other side, because one side is Jerusalem, Israel, and the other side, back then, was Jerusalem, Jordan. And he said this was a strange feeling to go to the ancient city of God and see the tragedies of man's hate and his evil, which causes him to fight and live in conflict. Some of us who are my age and older in this room have also lived through great times of hope, through times of approaching one another to a degree greater than we might have thought possible. And the fact that we are not there right now does not mean that those moments didn't happen and that it's not possible to find our way back to one another. Ultimately, as I walk out every morning from my door, I keep a picture of our planet by my front door as taken out the window of the Apollo capsule of Apollo 16, one of the last flights to the moon in the 1970s. And I keep that picture, that blue marble picture of the Earth by my front door as I walk out every morning to remind us that ultimately the problems that we face as a species are going to render absurd these problems that we make or seek to discover in one another as though, oh, we solved that guy over there. No. Again, I come to the world being a remarkable pointillist painting, a remarkably complex and wondrous place. And for those of you whom I don't yet know, I don't know anything about you yet just by looking at you or how you're dressed or the fact that we're in New Hampshire or, you know, whatever it may be. To get to know you, I need to get to know you. And unless you're a very unpleasant person bent on being, you know, particularly difficult with me, I'm likely to like you. I happen to like human beings quite a lot. So let me remind us again, when we are being sold a simple story about anyone, and cadets, remember this please, and I look at you as an amazing diverse group of cadets in this room. If ever anyone is trying to sell you a simple story about a person or a country, chances are some form of bias is in play. So be very, very cautious about buying simple stories. We're more than that. We're all more than that. It's an honor to be with you. This room is truly an antidote to hate, and in that sense, the best possible honoring of Dr. King's blessed memory.